Bound, presented by Castrol GTX High Mileage. I'm your host, Jason Seguini. Joining me, Jesse Marsh, former U.S. national team assistant coach Simon Borg. And we're exhausted.
We did it.
The U.S. is through. They backed their way into the second round. We've seen it done before, and we'll take it. I think, frankly, everyone is just happy to move on with this. Also joining us will be Greg Lawless a little bit later in the show, but the U.S. lose the game 1-0 to Germany, go on thanks to a Portugal 2-1 victory in their match over Ghana. Guys, we did it?
Yes, we did it. No, we did it. And, you know, things happen at the World Cup, and often it can be razor thin, the line between success and failure. We saw that in the Portugal game, okay? So in some ways, maybe we deserved to be already through 5 days ago. So we didn't get the result there, but you saw in the 70th minute, Juarez missed a chance for Ghana, which was a huge moment on the day. Yeah. And now it allowed us to, that even though we lost this game, I thought the approach was pretty well, and now we're through to the second round.
Look, we got to give credit. I didn't give the U.S. a chance in this group. They somehow survived. I think they're going to have to send a special care package to Pepe because, let's be honest, if Germany doesn't go nuts on Portugal in that first game 4-0, Portugal is in the mix and probably knock the U.S. out on this last day. But that the 4-goal win by Germany comes out to play a big role in this.
That's how the World Cup goes. All the games count. Every little thing plays into the final result. All right, let me
say this, here. Jason. I mean, I experienced it in 2010. You know, we were 1 minute, 2 minutes away from being eliminated, and Landon Donovan scores a last-minute goal, and we win the group. So it's not like for the U.S. it's ever been easy. You know, we've had to now fight our way through moments, get lucky, get unlucky, get lucky again, and stay true to now the belief in the team, and we came out.
But here's where today feels a little weird and different. It's that it's coming off a loss where, frankly, the U.S. was nowhere to be found. I mean, they were just packed back, defending, and although, again, they held their own against a tough Germany team, in 2010, you could take momentum off that win against Algeria and off the Donovan goal. I don't know what they're going to build off here.
Well, the other point, though, is off of Algeria, we were exhausted, much like we were in this game, because the turnaround was quick. So I actually think we're poised here to move forward.
One of the best performances we've seen out of the U.S. national team was 2002. They backed into the second round after a loss to Poland in that they needed help from Korea in that game against Portugal. So if that's the best run the U.S. has had in the World Cup, maybe it does bode well. Let me do some housekeeping here and remind everyone, you can call into the show. I know everybody has opinions. Everybody has something they want to talk about. The number is 212-481-1951. You can also tweet at MLS with the hashtag BrazilBound. We'll get your questions on the air. I have a bunch of questions already. We're going to get to this shortly when we talk further about the lineups. But the first thing I want to mention about the lineups is we were a little surprised to start the game to see Omar Gonzalez in there and Brad Davis. Those were the two changes made from the last game. Gonzalez had a little bit of a dicey moment early, but then made a couple big plays shortly after.
Yes, and I think that's what got himself into the game and partly what helped settle the team down a little bit. I think once they saw Omar make a couple of big plays, it really settled down the whole group. So happy for him that he was able to come in and make the kind of imprint that helped the team. And Brad Davis, fair enough. You know, didn't get himself going too much just because we didn't have the ball all that much, but put in a fair enough effort. Now Bedoya comes in, finishes out the game.
Gonzalez's big plays, 3 plays by my count in the box. 2 tackles dangerous. He doesn't make those tackles. Something bad could have happened there. And then a key header in the second half. So his interventions were key.
All right, let me get to my first Twitter question relating to this. Sarah Marie from Twitter asks, will we see Gonzalez again over Cameron in the next game?
Look, if the opponent's Belgium, depends on the opponent. If the opponent is Belgium, I mean, I can see where maybe I know Gonzalez gets another call here because they have, the big hulking forward Lukaku. They might throw Marwan Fellaini there. We saw him play it forward in this World Cup. So because the aerial game might factor into what Belgium does, then yeah, I could see Gonzalez.
Well, I think what'll be interesting is if we ever get word of what the reasoning behind the change was. if there was a physical issue with Cameron or if they felt like maybe he made a couple of big mistakes in the Portugal game and that it was time to make a change. Or if they just thought it was a tactical decision. So,
even in his Flashstone interview, Klinsmann didn't address it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, before the final games, Gonzalez and Beasler was the pairing. Before Gonzalez got hurt, Gonzalez and Beasler was his preferred center back pairing. You figure Gonzalez has had some time to get healthy now. Maybe it was a matchup thing. I could see this carrying over if you look at the mistakes Cameron's made. And I'll throw this out. If Belgium is the opponent the next time around, when they played them last year, Cameron played it right back against them. Could have had to do with who was available at the time, but something that we could see in the next game. Okay, a couple more things I want to get to here. The weather definitely played a factor in this game. Teams were missing passes out of bounds. The ball was skipping all over the place. Did that favor the U.S. with the torrential downpours? And we saw flooding outside the stadium.
I think potentially, well, let's go to the start of the game. Because the start of the game, I actually think it helped Germany. And I think the U.S. didn't mean to come back into such a defensive shell, but because the field was slick and now Germany was able to pass cleanly on the ground, they just, up until about the 20th minute, they were just passing around the U.S. like cones. So I think that it helped the U.S. or helped Germany. In the end, I'm not sure it was that much of a factor. I mean, there were a couple of miscues here and there, but I thought the game was pretty clean overall and that the players were still able to play.
Regardless of how much Germany dominated position, I agree with you, the slick surface helped. The fact is, when the U.S. had their turn, they couldn't extend 10 passes together when it counted, and they were coughing up the ball.
There was a lot of time where they couldn't extend 3 passes together, which we were trying to count at some point.
I would attribute a lot of that to heavy legs. You know, there were some touches that were just off that normally weren't, and then there wasn't the availability of players and options, and that was partly because, partly heavy legs, partly they have the ball a lot in the beginning, so we never are able to now push our team up the field a little bit and establish a rhythm ourselves.
Well, let me ask you about the heavy legs, because we had talked about this on the previous show. Bradley, Beckerman, Jones, the 3 most important guys in the middle of the field, had played a lot of minutes. They looked tired at the end of the last game. They went out here, and I thought there were a couple examples where they looked tired in this game, not being able to trap balls that were otherwise relatively easy for them. So we got a question that came in here from Darcam7 on Twitter. That's a relatively easy Twitter handle, considering some of them out there. Is it time to consider Mix over Bradley? And I hesitate to go too far with the should Bradley be benched, but we were talking about bringing Mix in as a sub for Bradley in this game. They didn't do it.
So, I don't think Bradley's had his best 3 games with the ball, but I think his overall defensive work, the ground he covers, the way he closed space down, and along with how it's fit with what Kyle Beckerman and Jermaine Jones have done, that has been a key ingredient to the success of this team. And tactically, we'll even go through it later. There haven't been many times in any of the 3 games where we've given up chances that have come straight down the middle of the field. Almost everything that we've given away has come from the wide areas, and it's because those 3 guys have done a good job of working off of each other. The team has kept things tight, and we've made teams go wide.
But I would argue that Bradley, I don't feel, has covered enough ground. And, you don't see him his usual bustling self where he's covering, he's everywhere. He pops up everywhere, and to me, that's a concern. And I thought, at least toward the end of the game, when maybe you were hoping for a goal or hoping the U.S. chases the goal, you'd see Diskerud, because I think in the attacking sense, while Bradley had a few long balls that were pinpoint and quality, world-class balls, I think they needed more possession and they needed the short game to work a little bit. I thought fresh legs like Diskerud would help.
All right, Jesse, you mentioned tactics. I'm going to let you get over to the tactics board with Greg, and I'm going to read one more question because we're in a giving mood today. Ben Willie from Twitter says, "What's up with Bradley? Grab that guy a Snickers." Take it away, Jesse and Greg.
I don't really know what that means.
You don't know? He doesn't know the Snickers campaign.
Yeah, you gotta. Watch more TV.
I'm not like chocolate. I don't watch.
I remember Tab Ramos in the '90s, concentration, stepovers.
I don't really know what that is. Anyway,
So-
look, I mean, Michael Bradley. We could talk about what he did. He did run something like 7.8 miles in this game. That's a lot of running, considering he did the same thing 3 days ago or something like that. Let's talk a little bit about the tactics in this game. And we entered into it seeing, well, where is Germany going to be breaking the U.S. down? They got the one goal, of course, but they really didn't get that much joy, if you will. Show us a little bit how Germany was attacking.
Yeah, again, I think the formation was a 4-4-1-1, and these three guys in the midfield often looked flatter and compressed because Germany had the ball and was now looking to play through our midfield. Michael was meant to be up here but couldn't find that space much. Actually, Jermaine wound up going up a lot often to do that. But what we were able to do is now when Germany would start to put their attacking players in and around our midfield, things were so tight, and if you could draw some arrows, that now, yeah, they were able to play in here a little bit and then back and little combinations, but they weren't really ever able to make any runs and penetrating balls that led to getting behind our back line. And what it did was it forced Howades and Boateng. And you saw early on that often Boateng was out in wide spots. And then now the next problem, once it gets wide and they start to test our back line, is how quickly can Beasler and Gonzalez and then the rest of the line, but how quickly can they compress the space in front of Timmy Howard to make sure that no German attackers can press these kinds of balls. So that was where Omar Gonzalez he made one gaffe earlier, but he did a really good job of winning balls, seeing those early, and cutting those out. And then along with Timmy Howard sometimes coming out with his hands and dealing with it.
And arguably you could say that those two sliding tackles that we saw Omar Gonzalez make, tracking back on a forward that was making that run, almost gave the U.S. a lot of confidence in a way, confidence in their back line, but also the ability to say, hey, we can play a little bit.
Yeah, and actually, one of the plays where Omar did a really, really good job is when Mueller came off, and I believe it was Oitzel, who then Mueller came off, Gonzalez let him go and saw that he was going to play a little, can you press the draw for me? A little 1-2 through here, and Omar read that, laid off Mueller, came through here, made the tackle. So, it wasn't just some of his physical plays that he made that were so good. It was how he read the game at different moments, which I think there's been question marks how Omar does that at times. But for me, he showed confidence. After he made the early mistake, he showed confidence, he read plays, and he picked things off.
So we've heard a couple of times from you in these games about how the U.S. wants to defend more sort of up here, right, versus here.
Yes.
Right? In the first half, it felt like they were back here, especially early on. It felt like they were back here.
Yes.
Were they just dropping too far, or was it just that Germany was coming so much?
Yeah, I don't think that the game plan was to have the line be so deep.
Right.
But what happens is when you play against the best teams, and they're able to now be so sharp on the ball. And it was almost like if now Schweinsteiger caught a ball in the midfield and you're Jermaine Jones, he took a touch in a way that just made you think that you could get it, but then it opened up a little something because you moved out of the way, and then he made the next pass. And then the next German player was able to take a touch that set up the next play. And so their efficiency and their ability on the ball and their clarity with what kind of plays they want to make and availability of players off their shoulders was so good that it just forced the U.S. deeper and deeper and deeper. But again, we didn't give things away through the middle. We gave them up on the sides, and then we dealt with crosses.
Jason, you have a question coming.
All right, as we do have a question, we have a caller on the line. It's Mike McDonald again. I'll remind everyone, 212-481-1951 is the number. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, first of all, the USA, proud of our country for moving on to the round of 16 for the second consecutive World Cup. But I think that the USA needs to improve on a lot of things, especially attacking and passing. I mean, what are the main things that this team needs to do to advance further into this World Cup and possibly even win it?
All right, well, hopefully we're worried about the U.S. winning the World Cup. But the things that need to happen in order for the U.S. to go through and to advance on the attacking side of the ball.
One key, recover Josie Altidore. If Josie Altidore, and there's still hope that he can come back. That's at least what Jurgen Klinsmann has told us. If there's a chance he can return, that's what was missing from a game like today. If you watch it, whenever they were launching long balls, Dempsey didn't have the stamina, didn't have that burst to get to balls, to hold it up and give the U.S. a breather, which is why they were all pinned in. If you get a Josie Altidore against a team like Belgium that can give problems to what I think they have world-class center backs, Belgium does, then I think you have a chance. Now, that's going to be the story. I think between now and Tuesday, what's the fitness of Josie Altidore? Is he available? Because Dempsey alone, it's not going to get it done.
Well, I agree 100% with Josie and his availability and being important for the team. But, yeah, that's what's going to have to be evaluated. I don't expect Josie to be ready. And so the next question is, can you find chances against the best teams with just Clint up top, or do you need to withdraw him a little bit and play with somebody else up there?
But here's the thing. If you're going to go with Clinton up top, that's putting more of an onus that Michael Bradley has to just play out of his mind. And we're not seeing it yet. He doesn't have that energy to get by guys and join the attack like we've seen in the past.
But for me, it would also include the players who played today in Zusi and Davis's role. And Zusi's done fine, Bedoya's done fine, Davis has done fine, but none of them have had such an impact on the game that they really help our team in the attack, and they help put plays together. So they've done a lot of good work. They've worked their butts off, and defensively they've helped us with a lot of dirty work, but we need players ahead of the ball. Dempsey, Bradley, those two guys to be more effective and efficient with the ball.
All right, let me explain to the audience where we stand here as the U.S. now goes into the second round. They will play their game on July 1st. That's Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, against the fourth-place finisher in Group H. Now, that is likely to be Belgium. Belgium has to lose, and Algeria has to win their games, those games at 4 o'clock today, in order for Algeria to win the group, and then that would be the U.S. opponent. Belgium goes through with a tie or a win in their game. So, again, I think we all think it's pretty likely that they will be taking on this Belgium team. Now, Belgium is a team the U.S. played last year. Yep. Belgium brought a pretty full squad. They didn't have Eden Hazard, one of their best players. The U.S. had a good amount of players there. Josie started and played a half. Eddie Johnson came in at halftime in that game. Belgium handled the U.S. very easily in that game. The final score is 4-2. I don't think the game was that close, though, in Cleveland. So give me your thoughts here. Looking ahead to that game, how does the U.S. match up?
I think Belgium's a quality team. And the only question is, it'll be interesting to watch them today. For sure, I'll be rooting for Algeria. And part of that would be the storyline of playing Algeria, and that would be great. But it'll be interesting watching the Belgian game if they're able to get themselves going more than they have. They have 2 wins, both by 1 goal. They've looked sharp in moments, but they haven't looked spectacular. They haven't looked like the Belgian team that we thought we'd see. So this will be an interesting game to see what they look like.
I think the U.S. have a chance against Belgium, mainly because what I thought going into the tournament, mentality. It's a young team. They have star ability, but as a team, I don't know that they have the mentality as a team to go at opponents, to just impose their will. And I think if the U.S. can come out strong and recover those legs, because let's be honest, without energy, without work, the U.S.
It's a different team. Totally.
You can't have the game that we saw today in Germany against Belgium.
All right, we're going to get to a call in a second. The one thing boding well for the U.S. is their next game in Salvador. The forecast right now for that game day is 63 degrees and cloudy. That's going to help you get your legs under you rather than playing in, let's say, 90, 95 and humidity.
And it's a later game, right? Yeah.
We're going to take a call now from Fidel Franco. Fidel, you're on the line with Brazil Bound.
Hi, guys. I got to give my hand to the USA just because of the fact that in a World Cup...
Oh, pushing some buttons there, Fidel. Still there? I think we lost Fidel. Sorry. His question, from my understanding, was what was his question about? His question was about, can they replace the U.S.? Can they replace Josie with Wando or Johansson in any way? What do those guys offer similar to Josie, and what can't they replicate from Josie, I guess?
Well, they're not as physically gifted as Josie, period. So, that includes holding up balls, winning foot races, winning head balls, battling up there. So, but what they might be able to provide is clever movements to keep the team connected. And I thought Wando, even though he only came in sort of a short appearance against Portugal, he did that part well in a few moments. And if you were to go with Wando, that's what you'd be looking for. And then bring in the other team in the game, getting him around the box, and seeing if he can score a goal in that manner.
But when you're going up against a team that's almost equally as talented as Germany, I think they're going to go with the same formation. I mean, would you bet against that formation?
Yeah.
5 midfield?
In some ways it's worked. In some ways it hasn't. I think for me it depends on what kind of approach do they want. Do they want to try and sit back and keep things compact and look to catch on the counter, or do they want to see if they can possess the ball a little bit more? That is one of the possible solutions. If they want to now play a little bit more on the opponent's end, would be to play someone else with Clint and what that might look like. I'm not saying that it's definitely the answer, but that is a potential solution.
I'll throw one out at you. What if Diskerud was the attacking mid, and you take Bradley out of there and keep him maybe on the left in one of those flank positions, but maybe a little bit further back?
Yeah, I mean, you could. That's a little bit of a curveball, but you could try that.
We've seen Jermaine Jones kind of handle one area of the field. If Bradley can handle the other and maybe leave the attacking mid role to Diskerud,
or you could sit maybe Bradley next to Beckerman, and Jones is tilted a little bit to the side, and now you could maybe use his mobility, and then either Zuzi or Bedoya.
That's a better solution. That's a better solution.
All right, guys. Jesse, I'm going to let you go over to the tactics board and talk a little bit about what we expect to see for the lineup for the next game, what you would do when you're taking on this team, but I'll also get in a question that came in from Twitter. Jaime Hermida, or Jamie Hermida, one or the other, says, which Belgium player do you fear more, Lukaku or Hazard? Talk about that, and then talk about how the U.S. maybe defends against them.
Yeah, I mean, for me it would be Hazard, and it's mostly because he makes Lukaku look good, and he makes Lukaku's chances. And, he likes to play a lot on the coming down on the left wing, but he can show up in different places, and he's so clever and sharp on the ball that he can catch you at any moment. He can slip a ball, he can finish shots, he can get on the end of things. So very active player, fun to watch. Has been decent this tournament, but hasn't been as good as we've all thought maybe he would be, and that could be a potential reason why Belgium hasn't really gotten itself going. So
Lukaku sort of reminds me of Asamoah Gyan in the way that they play too, and that sort of, it's very powerful. It's all about sort of spinning off that defender and getting into that space and driving into the defense.
Yeah.
Whereas Hazard's so tricky, and it's about pace, and he very often, if you notice with Hazard in particular, likes to get the ball in these situations here and try to get around. He does it with Chelsea all the time. We've seen him do it with Belgium as well. So this U.S. lineup, how would you set up the lineup if you were going up against Belgium?
Well, I think the biggest benefit they have now is they'll have some rest.
Yep.
For mentally, physically, the whole bit. So I think you've got to go back to whatever you think your first string lineup is. And so that probably does not include Davis.
Okay.
But then the question mark is, what do you do? So we talked about maybe you tilt Bradley back, and then do you leave Jones tilted a little bit to the right, and then that brought in Guzan. Keep bringing in Guzan.
How often is Guzan, right?
Sorry, you could bring in Diskerud like we've talked.
Oh, no.
Okay, and Diskerud's got no face.
We got to work on Diskerud.
So that's a potential possibility. The other one I think that I think I would seriously consider seeing Wando now in this game, just because I feel like Dempsey needs somebody else up there to help him hold up the ball, to help connect plays, to help bring the rest of the team, and most importantly, the way the U.S. plays, bring in Johnson and Beasley, because in this game, I mean, it's hard to think of times where Johnson even went past midfield.
Yeah.
So
but I do worry about his fitness at this point.
Yeah,
3 games, he's put a lot of effort in. He looks really tired on recovery runs in particular.
No, I agree with that. And then the only other one is, I know Cameron makes one bad mistake against Portugal. I don't put the second goal on him. It's if he could have made the play, it would have been a very good play. Right. And I think Omar brings quality in the box because of his size and ability to sniff out head balls. But I think Cameron's overall package is bigger, and he's better at, foot races with his feet.
And still good in the air, obviously.
Yes, reading things, physicality, that is still, Jeff Cameron brings a lot.
Right. We got a question?
All right, guys, I want to get to another caller, and we talked a lot about substitutions and fatigue and whatnot. So let's get to Tayson, who's on the line. Tayson, go ahead.
Hi. So, guys, I was really, I think your analysis has been really good. I really appreciated some of the stuff that you've been talking about. I was curious, why wait so long for the Yedlin substitution in the game? And I was also curious if you guys think that, that supposedly there was this closed-door scrimmage with Belgium that happened, before the World Cup started. Do you think that that will play into how the U.S. approaches and their familiarity with Belgium based on the roster that they have for the World Cup?
All right, the first question, or the second question on the Belgium scrimmage, that scrimmage never happened. It was canceled. The teams are familiar with each other based on playing the game that we talked about last year. So I'll move on. I'll go with the other question, though. Why did it take so long to put DeAndre Yedlin in, Simon? What's your thoughts? Because I thought a couple of us were saying to each other, let's get him in. Let's get him in there. It worked last time.
Not only that, tell me if I'm missing anything here, but he kept a substitution in his pocket. Am I wrong? I mean, the substitutions were Bedoya and Yedlin. And so, I don't know what he was waiting so late for those. I mean, in that scenario, look, you're hearing the result coming from the other game for sure, and Portugal's up. Maybe you want to keep everything in, packed in. And so maybe, to bring in Yedlin is to take maybe a little more chances. And if Portugal get a goal and Germany get a goal on you, maybe it's just to be a little more conservative. You don't see Yedlin.
Guys, you have a take on this?
Well, look, the one thing that we know Yedlin does bring is he's going to bring pace. He's going to bring a willingness to get forward a lot. Obviously, he has some defensive liabilities in this. But he also has so much, at this point, he's just fit. Compared to the other guys, he hasn't put the miles in the way the other guys would. Would you bring him in as a start? Could you maybe switch these two, midfielder, defender, or something like that?
I wouldn't disturb Johnson at right back, especially for this next game. I was a little bit surprised to not see Yedlin come in earlier. I think at 1-0, they're getting messages about other scores. They're analyzing what it means to their group. They're trying to think how to handle the game. The game did die as time went on. And by the 75th minute, I think both teams knew where they were at, and now both teams were just trying to get through to the next round.
No injuries, no cards, that kind of thing.
And so I think that may have had a factor in why Yedlin didn't come on earlier, and maybe why they didn't use the third sub. They were just kind of thinking, all right, let's just keep the scores the way they are. He's another potential starter for the Belgian game. I would have actually been in favor of seeing him start this game just because playing against 4 slow-footed center backs means that you take them out of their comfort zone. So that's what Yedlin does. As much as he's not a refined player, he takes whoever he's playing against, the defender he's playing against, takes them out of their comfort zone and challenges them to now be a good defender. So especially with Holidays having a yellow, you would have thought that was a good time to put him on. Maybe you can pick up another one.
That early yellow card to Havertz would have been great because Johnson was not bombing down the flank the way he did in the first couple of games. Well, we'll see if Yedlin ends up getting in the lineup or getting some more time in the next game, whether it's Belgium or Algeria, whoever they play. Guys, back to you.
Well, I want to address something. Belgium, they play make mainly on the flanks. And so if you put a guy like Yedlin in, are you going to get the support you need defensively when, again, they're playmaking out wide, Belgium is? And again, assuming it's Belgium.
But we've actually said that he is a liability defensively. We know that. So the question is that does he bring you something else in the attacking side, which is another thing. We just said he does cause problems for defense.
Let me clarify. I think when he's a liability here because he's not as good at seeing all the penetrating cutting passes. But I actually think that when he plays up here, as much as he gets forward with pace, he comes back with pace too. So he could help deal with Hazard on that wing and now get back and help defend with Johnson. And we've also seen that at times Johnson has now lost track of a man. So again, I think if they were able to work on that relationship a little bit on training and cover tactically how they want to play with each other, I don't see why that can't work.
Well, Simon, I think you actually bring up one of the great things about Yedlin and the criticisms of him, which is he's so good at recovery, but he always has to seem to recover. So you put those two things together. We got another question, Jet.
We have a lot of questions. I'm going to get to some comments because we said we're going to give a lot of stuff away on this show. We have a lot of Castrol World Cup swag to give away, so we're going to give some away now. Rachel Panulo from Twitter says, love a good Tab Ramos mention. Nice work. I missed that. I didn't even see that one or hear that one. Chad Blatt says, Howard is a beast. Good for you, Chad Blatt. Thanks for participating. Maria Juarez says, thank you, Portugal. And Aaliyah G says, I'm in the same disbelief, relief, excitement, and utter joy that I was in when I got my bar results. I assume you passed. Congrats. All right, now I'm going to take this question from Robert Krieb, who says, what are the odds in percentage that the U.S. makes it past the next round? So give me a number here. Give me a percentage on how likely it is the U.S. are going to make it past the next round.
Well, you would have to start with who the opponent is.
Let's assume it's Belgium. We've been assuming it's Belgium.
Yeah, we're going to make the assumptions it's Belgium.
If it's Belgium, I'd say less than 50%.
Less than 50.
Yes.
I was going to go 40%. A 40% chance.
That's less than 50.
Yeah, I was going to go 40. I gave you an exact number. Help us with a number. 40%. 60% chance Belgium goes through.
Simon, are you sure you're going that high? That's a surprise to me.
Less than 50%.
I just expected you to be much further down.
Belgium would be a favorite going into the game. There's no doubt about that. But again, if we can manage the game the right way, if we can be good on set pieces, I still continue to say that is a way that we can be successful in this World Cup, is finding ways to get more set pieces and then convert them.
I was amazed in this game against Germany. I counted, 1 or 2 corner kicks?
Yeah.
And not a single set-piece free kick in the box.
I know.
Yeah,
it's because we were hardly ever in that
area.
There you go, Simon. You get your rain cloud. We knew it was going to come into play in this show at some point. Look,
I think there's seedlings.
Maybe this is relevant to it, but we wanted to finish up by talking about best case scenario. How far can this U.S. team go realistically?
Jesse doesn't like to talk about that.
I mean,
yeah, Simon wants to. He sees us playing Mexico in the final.
It's perfect. The U.S. ended up on the side of the bracket they wanted to be, because that to me is the manageable side. Why? Because Belgium, like I said, mentality-wise, they're not going to run over anyone if that's Belgium at H1. And so you can beat them in a one game. Then you possibly have Argentina. Argentina, they're Messi dependent. We've all been hearing this story the whole World Cup. Their back line is not anything to be scared of. They seem lost as a team. And then you look ahead to possible semifinal opponent, and you have Mexico and Costa Rica in the mix. We'll see what's going to happen over the weekend. Mexico can knock off the Netherlands. The Netherlands would be the one you're concerned about in that side of the bracket.
Greg, you're not concerned with the Netherlands, are you?
Why would I be concerned with the Netherlands?
Mexico's going to win the World Cup, first of all.
And they got to go through the U.S. to do it.
Will you stand by your prediction if it's Mexico-U.S. in the semis?
I will stand by my prediction.
I will
stand by my prediction.
You in a spot.
I will. No, I will. I will stand by my prediction of how it will, but I will root against my prediction. How's that? Because I am a fan as well. So I will stand by it. I love this. I think this Mexico team is very, very good. And I think that they will cause problems for the Netherlands, not only because of the way they're playing, but they're going to have 35,000 people in that stand. That's going to be like Azteca South.
One question I had for Jesse. So the team, when your team advanced and you took on Ghana, was your job also maybe while you're preparing for Ghana to scout, I think it was Uruguay, no?
And South Korea.
And South Korea. Were you already scouting those teams before you played?
Yes. You wind up dividing up the labor within the staff. And so I had prepared for Slovenia. I had spearheaded that. Then I was spearheading who to prepare for in the next round. It looked most likely like it was going to be Ghana or Serbia. And then you prepare for Ghana. While you're preparing for Ghana, part of the staff is also getting ready for the next opponent. So that would be Argentina versus Switzerland. So, but right now within the group, it's time to enjoy the fact that they've advanced. But for sure, even on the bus ride home now, you've got to start to shift the focus into physically preparing yourself, dealing with the logistics of family traveling, making sure that now in every way your team is now looking forward to playing the next match and not celebrating too much about the last one.
And Jesse, fitness-wise, that's going to be a concern for fans going into the next game. Is it feasible to think that in 4 days, or whatever's left until Tuesday,
5 days, 5 days they have,
can you be better physically than you showed against Germany?
No doubt. I think there'll be, because of the way that the game was played, the weather that it was played under, I mean, there will be some heavy legs, but for sure the team will have time now it'll be an extra day. They'll have time to recover. They'll have time to now get their physicality and their legs back under them, and I expect them to now look like physically a very more dynamic team come next week.
But your hunch, no Josie?
Yeah, I don't think Josie will be ready.
All right, I'm going to throw out one more fan question that came in on Twitter from Jan Fan. Is it too late to book a flight to Brazil? Of course not. Get down there.
Let's move the desk.
Team.
Let's take the desk down to Salvador.
It's going to be interesting to see how many U.S. fans
make
this trip to Salvador. We're hearing all about how the Mexican success has been really on the back of all those fans who are singing Cielito Lindo at all the games and really creating an atmosphere. Is the U.S. going to get that in Salvador?
We sure hope so. I think we all do, and we're all going to be back on Tuesday to discuss that game after the fact here on Brazil Bound, presented by Castrol GTX High Mileage. Remember, you can join us Tuesday after the match, similar to today. Same phone number, 212-481-1951. Write that down. Be back here on MLSsoccer.com after the match. Of course, we're going to have full coverage all week long leading into that game. Go enjoy. I think we probably want people to root for Algeria and against Belgium, right? You'd rather see Algeria in the next round? Go watch those games, enjoy them, and we'll see you again on Brazil Bound, presented by Castrol GTX High Mileage.